It's your man 100 grand Ross where the rock never stops. Next season is quickly approaching. We got training camp in the next month or so. Right now, we got summertime runs where guys are working on their bag, but hopefully they're working on just how to play winning basketball for the most part. But most of these winning franchises, they have a bunch of guys who understand winning basketball. And that's what I want to talk about today. Two franchises that I am looking at could potentially make the leap. And when I say the leap, I mean the leap into second round, third round of the playoffs, dark horse, upsetter to get into the finals. Who knows? But that they have the talent, they have the stardom, they have the experience, they have the pieces to make a run and compete with just about anyone at the top, whether it's the Cavs, whether it's the New York Knicks. Both of these teams in the Eastern Conference have the ability to compete with either of them. And so I want to talk about that today. But before I dive in, make sure you smash the like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. It's a small thing, but it's a big thing for the channel. And so any support that you can give me, I definitely appreciate it if you enjoy the content. Now, let me just start with this. What I constitute a team that is at the verge of making the jump into potential Eastern Conference Finals run, potentially an NBA Finals berth. Because if you make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, you are essentially a potential championship team. That's generally the consensus. Now, as much as we might say, like Oklahoma City was this incredible juggernaut team that had an incredible year and was blowing everybody away, they were. And yet, they got taken to game seven. And what it looked like at the beginning of the game seven was if Tyrese Halliburton hadn't blown out his Achilles tendon, the Pacers may have been well on their way to their first NBA championship. All that's to say is if you make it to the conference finals, you are a contender. And so the two teams I'm discussing, the Orlando Magic and the Atlanta Hawks, are two teams that I see viably can be competing at that level in the Eastern Conference. Now, other teams that might want consideration, like the Detroit Pistons, I don't think you're there yet. I think you need to cut your teeth a little bit more in the playoffs. You're still trying to figure out how some of your younger guys fit in terms of Jaden Ivey reintegrating into that starting lineup with now Asar Thompson full time in that starting lineup. You still have new veteran role players coming in and some young guys like Marcus Sasser, Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson still figuring out their games and trying to progress along with Ron Holland. So we don't know how that's all going to pan out. I think they're still another year away. But the Hawks and the Magic, I think they're right there. Now, I'm going to start with some of the main reasons why I think that both teams are right there. One, they've each had multiple playoff runs, albeit very short lived. They haven't been able to progress out of that first round for a while, especially in this rendition or this era of the makeup of their team. The Trae Young, Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, Risa Shea, they have not been able to progress in the playoffs, right? Past the first round. I think it was last season they were in the first round, right? Then you had the Orlando Magic, knocked out by the Cavs consistently, right? Just have not been able to progress, or the Boston Celtics, right? Whether it's been health, whatever the reason or excuse is, they haven't been able to advance, but it hasn't been necessarily because they haven't had talent. As I mentioned a moment ago, they've had health issues, major health issues to primary core pieces that really kind of stir the pot for what they try to do throughout the regular season and would hope to do in the playoffs. Whether it's guys like Jalen Suggs or whether it's guys like Jalen Johnson or the like, they have not had a full roster. Now, this year, they have made some significant additions. Whether it's the Atlanta Hawks bring in Kristaps Porzingis, now allowing them to go five out, like five out for Trae Young is a thing of beauty. To have four other guys that you can swing the ball to knock down threes or attack straight line drives and be high level defenders, I think that is the greatest compliment that you could hope for a facilitating ball dominant point guard who is probably one of the best setup men in NBA history. Like he's literally in that Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, Chris Paul range in terms of his ability to make other people better, to be able to get them the ball exactly where they need it and an opportunity for them to maximize their potential to score the ball. The Orlando Magic on the other side, they've added my man, Desmond Bain. I almost forgot his name. Desmond Bain. Desmond Bain is an incredible floor spacer and a shooter, but he's not just a shooter. He's also somebody who operates well off the ball and on the ball, meaning that he's able to attack the basket, make plays in the pick and roll, dribble handoffs, get downhill to the rim, his floater or pull up jump shot, and make the correct read and effective pass to a teammate to be able to score if he's double teamed or the help defense even shades his way. Now, you might say, well, what's the difference between him and Contavious Caldwell Pope? Contavious Caldwell Pope didn't have nearly the ball skills or the role that a coach would give him to say, yeah, make plays off the ball. But Desmond Bain has been doing that for the past 3, 4 years in Memphis. Not just doing it in Memphis, but also doing it at a high level. He has been relied upon to be one of their primary scorers, at least their secondary, if not primary scorer for that team. As their designated shooter who opens up the court for their entire offense, he was fed the ball early and often. If it wasn't John Morant, it was Desmond Bain. If it wasn't Jaren Jackson, it was Desmond Bain. But most of the time, it started with Desmond Bain. Now, when you add these pieces to their teams, I would say Desmond Bain potentially has the greater impact. And so I'm going to start with the Orlando Magic. Desmond Bain's impact in terms of that offense, I think it's going to give head coach, what's his name, Mobley, the ability to be more experimental and flexible in his offensive system, meaning taking the ball out of Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner's hands. If I'm honest with you, I don't think either are primary ball handlers. Like Paulo Banchero has the ability to be a primary ball handler. So does Franz Wagner. But neither of them, I think, are best suited to have the ball in their hands for a predominant amount of time. I think both of them are best suited to actually have a setup guy, someone to make them better, give them the ball on the move at in their spots in positions where they can just turn and score, or they can locate a mismatch, catch the ball already with that advantage, and then play out of that. Whether it's at the mid post, on the block, or coming off of a screen on the move, I think that that's where they're best suited. Having another guy like Desmond Bain who is going to force them to move the ball out of their hands. It's going to it's going to force Mobley, head coach Mobley for the Orlando Magic, to scheme having the ball in his hands more because of what he's able to do on the ball. I think it's going to begin to loosen up this offense. I think it's going to make it less predictable and less ball dominant or heliocentric, as they would say. And I think as a result, you're going to have a top 10 defense that also can potentially have at least a passable offense for the first time, probably in the head coach Mobley era, right? I want to look up his full name because I don't like just saying Mobley. Um, Orlando Magic coach. Yeah, Jamal Mosley. Jamal, I don't know why I forgot his name. I don't know why I forgot his name. But I think Jamal Mosley is going to have the ability to really step into that space to prepare his team for the playoffs in ways that he hasn't in the past. I also think it's going to save the legs of his two all-star forwards in Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero. And I think both of them are incredible talents. They just need the offense to be suited more to their skill sets, more to what optimizes their advantages, and less necessarily weighs on them to have to carry the full load, if that makes sense. But I think as a result, I think both of these teams are looking to get out of the first round. I think both these teams will have a legitimate shot of getting out of the second round. But let me go to the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks, I think, are going to have the type of defense, almost the inverse of the Orlando Magic. They're going to have the type of defense that's going to allow them to maximize that offense. They're going to have the type of defense that allows them to get buckets easier, which means that they won't have to rely upon Trey Young to be the sole facilitator of that offense. Now, I will say Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson are excellent with the ball in their hands. They both make high level reads. They're pretty secure in terms of being a ball handler and a playmaker. They're just not necessarily elite scorers in that regard. And they are improving 3-point shooters. And because this team doesn't have an elite shot creator, which is something I've talked about in past videos, right? RJ Barrett, Jonathan Kuminga, who knows? Is to say that they're going to need to be able to figure out ways to get easy offense. And the best way to do that is starting on defense. And so Kristaps Porzingis, I think, is going to be a piece that's able to anchor that defense while also expanding the offense. And I think the two-way potential of him on that team is going to allow them to be able to uh, not just play at a high level in terms of offensive and defensive efficiency, but I think they're going to be more sustainable to where they won't have to deal with so many injuries because they won't be so dependent upon those starters to be able to keep them out in front in games. We all know injuries happen, right? Knock on wood. But it's to say that if these teams are both healthy, I expect both of them to get into the second round. I expect both of them to push whoever they see in the second round, potentially to get into the Eastern Conference Finals. And once you get there, all bets are off. Once you get there, it's a war of attrition. All right, you're going to have some coaching things, adjustments, but at the end of the day, any team that gets to the Eastern Conference Finals has a chance to get to the NBA Finals. If I have to bet on one between the Orlando Magic and the Atlanta Hawks getting out of that second round and into the finals, that means probably beating either the Knicks or the Cavs. I would have to say it's the Atlanta Hawks. Trae Young is so battle tested at this point. Being 26 years old, he'll be 27 years old next month. He is in his prime. There is nothing he hasn't seen. There's not a defender he hasn't had to deal with. And I think that he has the winning acumen and head coach Quinn Snyder as well. He's won enough. He's been in the playoffs enough to be able to say, this is what we're going to be able to do in these types of moments in the playoffs. Jamal Mosley hasn't had deep runs in the playoffs as a head coach. And I think that could play a big part in this. Now, there's also teams like the Indiana Pacers. I think they're still going to be good and dangerous. Still got the Detroit Pistons. And you've got other teams who might sneak up in there who we don't see coming. But generally, the teams who make the jump are the ones who have the veteran experience, the stardom to build around, and the coaching in order to kind of strategize their way out of that first round into the second round and have a choice or a chance. And I think that those two teams are going to be the Orlando Magic and the Atlanta Hawks. But as always, I want to know what you all think. Who do you think makes the jump this year? Is it the Orlando Magic, the Atlanta Hawks? And let me know your reasons why. Hit me up in the comment section. I'm going to get back at you there. Peace.